Hi, this is Greg Koopman. In this video, we're going to discuss the technical aspects of the market basket analysis implementation. This video is part of the market basket analysis series. In order to get the most out of the information in this video, you should first watch the market basket analysis part 1 business view video. Here I demonstrate how I used the many-to-many relationship in the Cube Designer in combination with creating two identical item dimensions, using one to represent the item dimension to evaluate filter. Okay, I'm in my Visual Studio project in 2017, Visual Studio, and I'm looking at the Cube project that we discussed for our market basket analysis. We are in the Cube. It's called Market Basket Analysis, No Sales Orders. Why it says no sales orders is because the first cube I built, I did put sales orders in so that you could actually see the sales orders that were associated with the filter. But since there are 15 million unique sales order numbers, that kind of got pretty rough when you bring it into a dimension metadata, and when you bring it in, it slows everything down, and the user would have to be very careful when using that extremely. So if they pulled in sales order numbers and had things open for the world, and they were going to be bringing back a million sales orders, it would just stop the system. So I just took that out for it performed better. What you could do in that situation, though, and what I would do, is have a drill out where you drill out to like a report. So whatever you're sitting on, you drill out to a SSRS report and display the sales orders for that filter there. That's the way I would approach it. Okay, so you don't have to always go down to the granular level in your cubes. The cube here is fairly simple. We're not using all sorts of the features of analysis services here. For example, mining structures, roles. Well, roles you might be using. Assemblies, miscellaneous. You're not using any of those. And the dimensions are very simple. Analyzing, and we'll go through these later. The views are not complicated. And data sources is hitting against one database. So it's not very complicated. I have some calculated members in here that maybe about 10 or 12. And we're going to go through all those. You're going to see them. I'm not going to teach you analysis services here. This is really for someone who already knows how to do some analysis services and wants to go further and see how this model works. This model isn't exactly a normal model, but hey, it does the job, and that's the intriguing part about it, actually. So, okay, let's just go ahead over to our data source views. So here we are in the data source views, and we're going to look at the entire spectrum of the views. Basically, data source view is the view of your tables and the relationships that make up the back end, the relational end of the for the cube. What I always do is I use views. So my view standard naming convention is just a V in front of them, and we're going to go and look at each of these views separately. But I wanted to show you the layout first. First of all, I want you to notice here is that in this area here, okay, is one part of the back end, and you'll notice that this side is another end, okay, or what we would call, you basically have two different measure groups coming out of here. One is the VFACT online sales order. This is your detail. This is where your sales amount and sales quantity are. And the other is your analyzed by, which really is just a cross-reference table, also known as a factless fact table also. And this is where we're going to have a many-to-many relationship up here. Okay, and we're going to go over that in our later. Okay, so now what I can do, of course, in analysis services, I don't have to look. You might have 50 views on your source view panel, and that gets really impossible to look at, right? So what you can do is you can divide these out. So what I've done is divided this section over here into analyze by diagram, and then I created a diagram for this area, which is just a normal, kind of like the normal part of the cube there. So if I click on here, you'll see just those views, right? The view of which was on the right side, this area here, right? And if I click on this one, we'll see just the cubes in that reflect this area here. So let's just take a quick look at the views that these are assigned to. So when we go over and we look at structure for the sales order, your normal star schema cube part of it, we have dim date, vdim date, vdim customer, vfacts, online sales order. So when we look at the views for that, we'll see them here. So here's your dim date, nothing spectacular there, pretty basic stuff. Okay, so next we have the vdim product light, which again, you can study the code, but don't let this bother you up here. This is just a way I use to randomize the dims that are associated with the fact. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to get multiple line items for different kinds of dims and categories on the final implementation. So I had to do a little thing there. But basically, if you're working with normal production data in a normal company, it should be it should have its own randomness to it. So you don't need to do that. But so anyways, again, here it is. It's not doing a whole lot. There's a hierarchy. It has a subcategory, category joins. Nothing big. Okay, another typical dim table, basically dim view of a dim table. Okay, now here's our vdim customer view. Again, nothing special, just normal run-of-the-mill dimension. Okay, last but not least, we have the vfact online sales data, and this is coming from Fact Online Sales. It's a view. It has date key, product key, customer key, sales order number, sales quantity, and sales amount. Very simple fact table. All right, so that's what's represented in this particular layout here of our view, okay, of our Fact Online Sales order view. Now in the other one where we have the Facts Online Sales Analyzed By section, which is the part we added to the normal cube to make it that's going to form this many-to-many relationship. When we look at these tables, okay, notice I have analyzed by at the end. If we look at these views, okay, so we have the vdim order number sales analysis by. So here we're going to have a sales order number, that sample percent we worked on that dimension that we had in the filter in our prior video, the breakout, line item count, line item count order. Okay, so when we look at that view, this is how the view was set up. So as you see, here's a create view part, and here's our. Let's try and get. Okay, I guess I can't get all that on the screen, but yeah, that's a little smaller in case you need to. Okay. Well, you can slow motion this if you need to get it. So basically, here we have the our case statement for the breakouts. First of all, we do a CTE up here, and there we get we group by sales order number and count for line item counts. We are line item counts there. The second CTE, which is here, grabs a row number window function over the sales order number, okay, to give us a row number, okay. Then in the CTE, third CTE, I take the row number and I do a modulo of 20. So what I'm trying to do is get prepared for as my breakout numbers, and those numbers I use for a distribution to the sampling. So if the breakout numbers modulo is 0, it's 5% because that's 1/20th. Okay, using a 20. Breakout is 15%. I use 1 through 3, so that's 3 different modulos, which means 15% because 3 over 20 is 15%. So okay, so that's how we get my sampling. So if you study this, you'll see how this works if you want to use sampling, and if you want to use things like the size and that sort of thing. Okay, so this kind of helps you in there. So that's probably the most complicated part of the view of the whole thing, which isn't too tough. Okay, so next, in that particular area here, we have the VDIM product analyzed by view. Okay, it's a normal. So if we look at that, you'll see again I have a little bit of thing here for randomness. Again, you won't have that if you're just normal production random data that's already randomized by naturally. So anyways, that's the same exact as the other one. VDIM light analyzed by is the same as the VDIM product light here. Okay, so they're the same. Okay, now the last part, which is the cross-reference table that makes up this many-to-many relationship, is basically just the product key, and it connects to product key over on the DIM product analyzed by view, and the sales order, which is connects to the sales order on the dimension for sales order number analyzed by. Okay, so this is just a cross-reference table. There's nothing there aggregated or anything. It is basically what is called also a factless fact table. Okay, so to look at that, to look at its view, is very basic. All I do is do a select distinct from the main fact table, okay, which is this view here, which we went over before, and I give it a row number, Windows function. And there it is. So it's really basic. Okay, I just want to point out this distinct keyword, and I use a distinct because, for example, let's say you have a sales order called 123, and the person bought 4 products had 4 line items on it, 2 of which were for some headphone. Okay, so that headphones product number was ABC. So we had 2 ABCs, 1 sales order 123. We only need 1 of those. So that's why the distinct is here, so that we only serve up 1 of those back to this view. Okay, so that reduces the view by some number. So let's say there's 165 million line items, so it might reduce it to 140 million, but it reduces it. And anytime you don't need something like that, you can go ahead. It's good to go ahead and make it more concise. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to dimensions. And as you see here, I have how many? 5 dimensions. Again, this is a pretty simple cube, but basically, if we look at these, analyzing product, customer, data, and product again, right? So what I have is one called analyzing product and one called product. I also have an analyzing order categories. All right, and explain the 2 here. Analyzing product and product. Analyzing product and product are the same, have the same members in them. Okay, in other words, If we go to analyzing product, you'll see the same thing. You're going to see product, product category, product key, subcategory, name key for order, category key for order, name key for order, and subcategory name key. Anyways, what we're using here is the same area, except for we are looking at a physically different set of data. It's the same data, but physically to the cube, it's two different dimensions, and it's two physically stored dimensions. Okay, but there's still a copy of each other as far as their elements go. So that's what I want you to understand there. So this one, the analyzing product, is coordinated with the VDIM product analyzed by, which if we go back to our view, is under this our many to many, our future many to many relationship here. So you see the VDIM analyzed by. That's the one we're going to have up in our filter. We're going to pick the product, and then it's going to tell us all the quantity, the percentages and ratios of all the other products that were bought on the same order number. Okay, so this is our filter, the filter by. The other one, which is the product dimension, is used in the body of the Excel pivot table, and it's going to show us all the products that are related to the one that's filtered, or the ones, plural, that are filtered. Okay, and that's all that basically does. So there's nothing special about either of those except for what they point to. So this VDIM product, if we go back up to the data source view, it doesn't point to this view. It points to the sales order, the one that's connected to the main sales order fact table, and which gets you your quantities and amounts. Okay, so that's really the only difference there, the main difference in the two. Okay, I do need to take a closer look at analyzing order categories. Because it's not intuitive just by looking at the name there, what is under the covers. What this is really the sales order number is the key for this dimension, but I do not show the order, I do not show it in the pivot table, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this course. So I have the visibility property set to false. So if we look here, visibility is set to false, right? So that's why it's not showing up in the, that's why it's not going to show up in the Excel pivot table. Okay, so if we look at this, we could look at order number, which isn't visible in the Excel pivot table. 9 members, that means it keeps on going. So but I made that disabled because I think that when you go into that level of detail, you should be out at another type of reporting. It's not an aggregate for the cube, so as I spoke about before. So anyways, here what we do have though is the order size, which is based off of the small, medium, and large. And we also have the sampling here. Okay. So these are all based off the key, though, of the sales order. All right, so if we went into the view for this, right, we could just explore the data. And when we explore the data, as you see here, we have the view itself had broken these things out, so it made it really easy for me to set up these attributes, 15%, 30% for the sample percentage. And the line item was already set here for line item count, large, medium, etc. Okay, so all the hard lifting was done in the view, and by the time I got it here, all I had to do was assign those attributes. And I put here I have a line item count order, so that puts them in the, you know, since it's, we didn't want it alphabetical, I wanted by its, you know, small, medium, and large. So we did that. So anyways, that's how this particular dimension works. It's an important dimension. I just wanted to show it to you because it's not, since the sales order number isn't shown in Excel, it is the key though. That's why I needed to show this to you. Even though it's not present from your visual part of it, it is definitely a necessity in order to get these samples and order size. As I said before, I don't have any partitions on any of this data, even though you usually put them on every 20 million rows. So you see some squiggly lines under here. These are just warnings, they're not errors or anything. So what I did is I created 3 different measure groups, okay? And the measure groups, obviously, like all measure groups, correspond to fact tables. So the sales transaction measure group corresponds to the view, this view, the sales order model. The analyzed by sales transaction, that corresponds to this view, okay? The one-to-many, many-to-many relationship, okay? And the distinct order count reflects the distinct orders that are in the sales transactions, okay? And row count here reflects just the row counts of the analyzed by measure group. So these are going to be basically our line items, number of line items. And order count, this distinct order count is going to tell us, you know, if even though there's an order and there's 20 rows associated with it, there's only one, right? So that's a distinct count. So those are our raw metrics, our raw measures that we're going to build off of, okay? Now, and we're going to see that more on when we go to the calculated members. Okay, for completeness, I want to go into each one of these measures. Now, I only have 5 measures in the whole cube. Then we build off those in the calculations later. But anyways, let's look at what we have here. So we have sales quantity, and that uses the usage is a sum. So it uses the sum aggregate on sales quantity column of the VFACT online sales order. Okay, sales amount also is a sum aggregate of the sales amount. Pretty logical. Line item count is a count of rows. So what this is used for later is for averaging the number of rows per sales order. Okay, so although this counts all the rows if you're on the all, but if you're on a sales order, it will tell you you have 9 line items or 10 line items or 4 line items. Okay, and that's what that's used. So it's used as a count of rows. Now in our analyze, we have a row count, which we're really not using at all at this point in the cube for any calculations. So you really don't see that in the Excel pivot table. But there's also the order count down here under distinct order count. And that is taking the sales order number and doing a distinct count on that sales order number. Next, we're going to go to the dimension usage screen, which is extremely important. This has got to be right. If this is not right, it will not work. Okay, so you have to make sure that your 5 dimensions are represented here. So your date, your customer, your product, then the ones that represent many-to-many relationships. So as you see, and again, I'm not going to explain all this to you because you can take a course on analysis services and get this. But basically, you have data key, which is a regular relationship type. Okay, so it just joins the date key, no big deal. Same with customer key, it joins to the sales transaction fact table, just like that. So when we're looking at this measure group, if we look at the view, we're looking at this model right here. All right, so let's go down further. And then here's product key, right? Regular. Then there's order number. And we have that set up as normal. But one thing you need to notice here, this is probably the most important part and the trickiest part. What you will not see, the sales order here, this dimension which is in this model, you will not see it connected to this fact sales order, not in the data source view. The connection comes in at this point right here. Okay, and that's very important. That's kind of like the conduit between the two measure groups. The other part of this, which helps select what order numbers are going to be represented here, relationship between analyzing product and the sales order. So here, you'll see a many-to-many relationship. And this relationship is what connects that model to the sales order. That sales order, this structure sets that connection to here. So once it's filtered here, that order will transcend into this cube, this measure group, and basically filter it, but will not filter it by product key. It will only filter it by the orders that are already filtered by this analyzed product key. Okay, so you can think about that for a while. These are not associated. These three dimensions are not associated with this, and so that's our order number, which is a regular relationship. Okay, regular, and our analyzing product key, again, on the regular relationship. So this set of relationships is represented right here. Right here. This relationship and this relationship here. Okay? All right. So going back here, now we're looking at the distinct count. Now remember, the distinct count is on sales order. And that sales, that order number is the order number represented by an attribute in this table. Although this order number is from the analyzing order category, there is also an attribute inside the sales order fact table, and that's what this one is counting. Okay? So again, this one has the same dynamic in its relationships as the sales transaction, since it is connecting to the same measure group, just connecting to the distinct order count of that. So as you see, these are regular. That's a regular, regular, regular. Okay, that's a regular, and this is a many-to-many again. Okay, these bottom many-to-manys are all the same, exactly the same amongst that bottom group. This is the key. This is definitely key to everything. Okay, if this is set up wrong, your numbers will not come out right. Now, the next part is our calculations, and this is really the final, because KPIs, actions, partitions, aggregations, perspectives, translations, not using any of those, okay? So we're going to go calculations, and these are these calculations are the numbers we saw in the first part 1 in the business view when we demonstrated all the pivot table. These are the measures that we brought on grid and in the filter. Actually, no, on grid in the pivot table. So what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to explain to you MDX and all that, but I want you to see the code in case you do know MDX, and this will show you how it all works. Okay, so if you can learn MDX, and you can put this, you can copy this, whatever you want to do. But these are the one by one in form view. If you go to script view, I think it's called script view, we can see them here. Obviously your names and things won't be the same. You could have variation. Obviously there could be many variations to this cube and these measures, but these are the ones I showed that match the presentation in the first part of this video series. So there they are, nothing to it. Thank you for watching.